Hello everyone, I'm Helen from Susan's family. Today, I'm showing you how to make the 4 C's Tour series, the Palazi Intarsia blanket. The electronic tutorial pattern can be found at en.susuddiy.com. Please feel free to view on it. The blanket consists of the main body, the border, and decorations, 3 sections. Start by crocheting the main part. After completing the main body, crochet around the edges for the border. Finally, make and attach decorations for corners and main part. Start by crocheting the main body. You can see that it consists of many patterns. Some of these patterns will repeat. To make it easier to explain, I will number the patterns in the order they are crocheted. Patterns that are identical will use the same number. When there are no patterns, there will be corresponding stitch instructions. When you are watching the charts, you need to combine the stitch reference with the color reference. Note that my charts are for teaching purposes only. The stitch reference mainly corresponds to the stitch techniques needed for the pattern positions. The color reference distinguishes the different pattern areas and also indicates the color change positions for each pattern. Following the order, we first encounter the pattern 1 area. So we start by crocheting pattern 1, start with a foundation chain, then work back and forth along foundation chain. While crocheting, some positions require color changes. The stitch techniques used are all marked on the charts. I won't go through each one here. Now, please watch my demonstration of the specific crocheting method. First, let's start by working the foundation chain. To make it clear for everyone, I will use random colors here for specific yarn details, color schemes and hook sizes. You can refer to the detail pages and pattern chart of our product. Hold the yarn in your left hand and pick up the hook with your right hand. Start with a foundation chain. Then work the corresponding number of chain stitches. Refer to the chart for the exact number of stitches. After completing this, the foundation chain is done. Next, crochet the first row of pattern 1. Start with chaining 1 as the beginning chain. This is the turning chain for a single crochet. It doesn't count as one stitch. Then, pick up the back loop of the second chain. From left to right, work 1 single crochet. The braid on the upper right is the single crochet stitch. 1 braid represents 1 stitch. Continue. Pick up the back loop of each chain stitch. Correspondingly make single crochets. Finish the last stitch. Remember to check the stitch count. It should match to the stitch count on foundation chain. At this point, the first row is completed. Move on to the second row. Start with chaining 1 as the beginning chain. The turning chain doesn't count as 1 stitch. Turn the fabric. Pick up the first single crochet. Work 1 single crochet. When crocheting on the wrong side, the braids are located on the upper left. Continue picking up the stitches. Work single crochets correspondingly. Complete the last stitch. Check the stitch count again. It should be the same as the previous row. The second row is now complete. Next, move on to the third row. Starting from this row, there are some positions where you need to change colors. In the color scheme, a small square represents one stitch. This row will still be worked in single crochets. Start with chaining 1 as the beginning chain. Turn the piece. Begin with 1 stitch using the previous color. Insert into the first stitch position on the edge, and work a single crochet. Continue working the second stitch. Since the third stitch position requires a color change, this second stitch needs to be an incomplete single crochet. Insert the hook, yarn over and pull through. This is an incomplete single crochet. Next, refer to the color scheme for the color change. Pick up the color you need to switch to. Leave a longer yarn tail. Hang the yarn with your left hand. Wrap the yarn around the hook. Pull through all the loops on the hook once. This completes the second single crochet. The color change is also completed. For easier explanation, I will call the starting color the main yarn. The color switch to will be called the contrasting yarn. Work 1 single crochet using the contrasting yarn. Since the next stitch needs to switch back to the main yarn, crochet an incomplete single crochet here. While crocheting, place all the yarn tails above the hook. Weave in the ends as you crochet. This also carry the yarn. Then pick up the main yarn. Wrap the yarn and pull through. This completes the single crochet. The color change is also completed. Whenever you need to change colors for the next stitch, the previous stitch will be an incomplete single crochet, then change color. Continue with 2 single crochets using the main yarn. When making the second single crochet, remember to switch to the contrasting yarn. Then work 1 single crochet using the contrasting yarn. At the same time, switch back to the main yarn. From now on, alternate crocheting 2 single crochets with the main yarn, and 1 single crochet with the contrasting yarn. Continue crocheting all the way to the end. While crocheting, remember to carry the yarn you switch out as you go. Before switching colors, stretch the piece too. Keep it flat. Continue crocheting down. After finishing the last stitch with the contrasting yarn, carrying yarn will not be necessary. Note that the yarn should be placed on the wrong side of the fabric. The first row should have the neat texture. Is the right side of the fabric? At the same time, the starting yarn tail is on the left side of the fabric. Otherwise, it is the wrong side of the fabric. Use the main yarn to crochet the remaining 2 stitches. After finishing, this completes the third row. Next, crochet the fourth row. The method is the same as the previous row. Alternate by crocheting 2 stitches with the main yarn and 1 stitch with the contrasting yarn. This row also worked in single crochets. Start with a turning chain. Turn the piece. Crochet 2 stitches with the main yarn. Switch to the contrasting yarn for the second stitch. Pull the yarn through to switch colors. Continue crocheting. While crocheting, pay attention to carrying the yarn. Finish the last stitch with the contrasting yarn. No need to carry contrasting yarn. Place the yarn on the wrong side of the fabric. This means the side facing you now. Continue crocheting the remaining 2 stitches. At this point, the 4th row is completed. For the subsequent 5th and 6th rows, the method is the same as the previous 2 rows. Make sure to put the contrasting yarn on the wrong side of the fabric at the end, so that the switch marks will be on the wrong side. For the 7th and 8th rows, the method is the same as the beginning 2 rows. No color change is needed. After completing the 6th row, cut the contrasting yarn, leaving a long tail. When crocheting the 7th row, weave in the end as you work. These rows do not use any new stitches. You can complete these rows by yourself. After completion, the next pattern requires a color change. Cut the yarn at the end. First, chain 1 to secure. Leave a little yarn tail. Cut the yarn. Pull tight. The yarn tail can be weaved in the subsequent crocheting. This completes the explanation for the first group of pattern 1. Continue in order. Next is the second pattern. Start by using the corresponding color. Work 2 rows of single crochets. Attach the yarn first. Find the edge stitch from the previous row. Place it on the right side. At this point, the wrong side should be facing you. Then pick up the first stitch. Insert the hook. Pick up the color you need. Make a slip knot. Place it on the hook. Draw through. Adjust slightly. Complete the joining. Chain 1 to begin. Correspondingly make 1 single crochet. Remember to weave in the yarn. Continue working single crochets. Complete the first 2 rows. After that, work row 3. In this row, we will work 3 double crochet in 1 stitch. I will refer to this as a leaf. The color scheme in the reference image uses larger squares. Start with the previous yarn tail. Chain 3 as the beginning chain. It counts as 1 double crochet. Turn. Insert into the same stitch below. Crochet 1 double crochet. Since there's a color change at the leaf position later, you need to crochet an incomplete stitch here. Yarn over. Insert. Yarn over and pull through. Then, yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops. There are 2 loops left. This is an incomplete double crochet. Next, pick up the contrasting color. Leave a long tail. Draw the yarn through. Now the double crochet is complete. The color change is also complete. Continue with the contrasting color. Skip 2 single crochets to the left. Crochet 1 leaf in the next stitch position. This means working 3 double crochets in 1 stitch. Make sure to carry the yarn as you crochet. Since the next leaf requires a color change, we will change colors on the 3rd stitch. Work the first 2 stitches. For the 3rd stitch, crochet an incomplete double crochet. Then pick up the other color. Pull the yarn slightly taut. Keep the fabric flat. Wrap the yarn and pull through. Complete the color change. The double crochet is also completed. At this point, 1 leaf is crocheted. Continue by skipping 2 single crochets. Crochet 1 leaf. For the subsequent leaves, use these 2 colors alternately. Change colors on the 3rd stitch of each leaf. Change colors by crocheting an incomplete double crochet. Complete the leaf and the color change. Continue alternating the 2 colors for the leaves. Crochet the last leaf. After skipping 2 stitches, there are 2 single crochet left. Here, we will split the last leaf. First, pick up the second to last single crochet. Crochet a DC 2 in 1. That means making 2 double crochets in 1 stitch. Then pick up the last stitch. Crochet 1 double crochet. No color change is needed here. Crochet normally. After completing this, the next row doesn't require these 2 colors. Cut the yarn for both colors. This completes the third row. Move on to the fourth row. Have the wrong side of the previous row facing you? Pick up a stitch at the edge and attach the yarn. Chain 3 as the beginning chain. Work 1 double crochet in the same stitch. You need to switch color here. The yarn tail from where you cut the yarn can be left in place. It will be woven in when you crochet the border later. After completing this, pick up between the leaves gaps. Use these two colors to crochet the leaves alternately. While crocheting, you can pick up the yarn tail that was previously woven in. Hide it as you crochet. For the last leaf, no color change is needed. Crochet normally. After completing, pick up at the first stitch on the edge. Work 1 double crochet. Here, pick up the third chain from the turning chain. Pick up 2 strands and insert the hook, then work 1 double crochet. The next row requires a color change. Break the yarn for both colors. At this point, the fourth row is completed. Crochet the fifth row downward. The method is the same as the third row. First, pick up the first stitch and join the yarn. Then, chain 3 as the beginning chain. In the same position, work a double crochet and change colors. Crochet leaves alternately downward. Remember to carry the yarn. In the last gap of the leaf, work a DC 2-in-1. Pick up at the position of the turning chain. In the third chain, pick up 2 strands. Insert the hook and work 1 double crochet. The color for the edge will be used later. Don't cut the yarn here, cut the other color. At this point, the 5th row is completed. For the following 6th and 7th rows, work single crochets without increasing or decreasing. Use the reserved color for crocheting. Leave the previous yarn ends in place. Hide them when crocheting the border. After completing, cut the yarn. This concludes the instructions for pattern 2. Next is pattern 1 again. This is the second pattern 1. The crochet method is identical to the first pattern 1. Start by joining the yarn, then crochet back and forth. Note that each time you join the yarn, start from the first stitch at the edge of the previous row. This means the wrong side of the previous row should face you. The final fabric will have a texture of 1 row right side, 1 row wrong side. The method has been demonstrated before. I won't repeat it here. You can complete this by yourself. After completing, use the corresponding color. Crochet 2 rows of single stitches. You can complete this as well. After completing, you'll reach pattern 3. Begin by following the chart to work the first 3 rows. Note that after completing the first 2 rows, you need to change colors. Then crochet the 3rd row. Here, I have already completed it. Continue crocheting the 4th row. From this row, start crocheting the pattern. This pattern has many colors. And in some areas, the same color is far apart. To make the fabric more beautiful, we can use the Intarsia crochet method. Start by referring to the chart. Crochet until you reach the stitch before the color change. When you reach the corresponding stitch position, work 1 single crochet and change colors. Then continue to work 1 single crochet, and switch back to the previous color. For convenience, I will call the starting color color 1. The second color is color 2. You'll need color 2 in this row later, but the distance to the next color change is a bit far. You'll also need this color in the following rows. For convenient crocheting, we will leave this yarn in place. Make sure it is on the wrong side of the fabric. Continue crocheting until you reach the next position for color 2. When you reach the next position for color 2, reconnect with the same color yarn and change colors. Since the number of yarn balls is limited, you can divide the large yarn ball into several smaller yarn balls. At the next color change position, you can use another small yarn ball to change colors. After crocheting with color 2, leave the yarn in place. Make sure it on the wrong side of the fabric. Continue crocheting using this method. Short yarn tails can be weave in as you crochet. Work one stitch at the edge. The method for the 4th row is now explained. Continue to crochet the 5th row. First, follow the chart until just before the position for color 2. Turn over the fabric. Due to the number of yarn balls, pay attention to tidy them up. Continue crocheting. When switching to color 2, simply pick it up to change colors. Work single crochets and switch to color 1 as you work. Place the unused color 2 on the wrong side of the fabric. Always place the yarn tail on the wrong side of the fabric. I won't repeat this later. Continue crocheting downward. Work the last stitch. The method for the 5th row is now explained. Move on to the 6th row. First, follow the chart until just before the position for color 2. At the corresponding position, switch to color 2. Then work 3 single crochets. When making the 3rd single crochet, you need to switch to color 1. As you crochet, carry along color 1. Hide the thread marks as you work. Continue crocheting downward. Finish the last stitch. The method for the 6th row is now explained. The 7th row is done in the same way as the previous row. You can complete it by yourself. After completing it, move on to the 8th row. First, work until the last stitch of color 1. I am already at the corresponding position. Switch to color 2. Here, keep color 1 in place. Work 2 single crochets with color 2. For the 2nd stitch, you need to switch to another color. Here, I call it color 3. Work 1 single crochet with color 3 and switch back to color 2. Keep color 3 in place. Then work 2 single crochets with color 2. For the 2nd stitch, join color 1. Here, reattach a new strand of color 1. For the subsequent positions of color 2 and color 3, switch colors normally and work single crochets. After crocheting with color 1, keep it in place. For the next section with color 1, reattach the yarn and crochet. Continue crocheting downward. Finish the last stitch. The method for row 8 is now explained. The method for row 9 is the same as the previous row. Use the previous yarn tail directly. Switch colors normally and crochet. You can complete it by yourself. Next, work row 10. Start by crocheting with color 1 until you reach the position where you need to switch to color 2. I have reached the corresponding position. Switch to color 2 and continue crocheting. Then work 2 single crochets. The 2nd stitch requires switching to color 3. Leave color 2 in its original position, which must on the wrong side of the fabric. Continue working 3 single crochets with color 3. For the 3rd stitch, join yarn 2. Continue working 2 single crochets with color 2. For the 2nd stitch, switch to color 1. Here, leave color 2 in its original position. In the same position afterward. Color 3 is in the middle. On each side, there is color 2 and color 1. Repeat this process. Continue crocheting downward. Complete the last stitch. The method for row 10 is now explained. For rows 11 to 33, use the corresponding yarn for corresponding section. When you run out of yarn, follow the color change method to join the yarn. There are no new stitches or techniques used afterward. Refer to the color scheme to complete row 33. Note that after completing row 33, you won't need color 3 for the next few rows. Simply leave a long tail and cut the yarn. After completing this, we'll move on to row 34. In this row, you need to cut one of the yarn in color 2 and color 1. Here, I'll use this small sample to demonstrate. First, crochet until the end of the first color 1. Then switch to color 2. Use color 2 to work 3 single crochets. On the third single crochet, switch to color 1. Here, hide color 1 as you crochet. Note that when switching colors, use the starting yarn tail. You can see that on the left side, there is still one thread of color 2 and color 1. Leave a long tail and cut the yarn. Weave in ends as you work. For the color position later, use the starting yarn tail for color 1. This applies to all yarns in color 1, except for the working color. Leave a long tail and cut the yarn. Color 2 remains the same. Leave a long tail and cut redundant yarn. Repeat this process to complete this row. Place the color 2 that was switched out in its original position. After crocheting, the method for row 34 is now explained. Here, there is only one color 1. Each pattern position also has only one color 2. For the subsequent rows 35 to 37, when you encounter a color change position, use the corresponding color to crochet. After completing row 37, leave a long tail and cut the yarn for color 2. Row 38 only requires using color 1 to crochet. Rows 39 to 40 need to be crocheted with other colors. Pay attention to changing colors according to the chart. There are no new stitches or methods in the following rows. Complete these rows. The crochet method for pattern 3 is now explained. The next rows is working in pattern 2, which is the second pattern 2. The crochet method is exactly the same as before. Refer to the chart to complete it. After completing this, the next rows is for pattern 4. The method here is similar to pattern 3. You will also work the corresponding pattern. The pattern here has colors that are not far apart. You can follow the method for pattern 1, carrying the yarn as you work, then switch colors at the corresponding position. You can also follow the method for pattern 3, attaching a few small yarn balls separately. Then at the corresponding position, use the corresponding yarn to crochet. If you encounter the first stitch at the edge of the next row is needed to switch to a contrasting color, you can switch colors at the end of the previous row. Then use the contrasting color to make the beginning chain. Then crochet the corresponding single crochets. During the crocheting process, for colors not needed later, leave a long yarn tail and cut the yarn. Afterwards, weave in the end as you work. The method has been demonstrated before. Refer to the chart. Complete the crochet for pattern 4. Next, move on to the position for pattern 5. Crochet the leaves as former steps. The method is the same as the leaves in pattern 2. You can carry the yarn to changing color, or you can use the Intarsia crocheting method to change colors. The color change method for the leaves is the same. Crochet the incomplete double crochets first, then switch colors accordingly. If you carry the yarn to changing color, when crocheting the next row, you can hide the yarn tails from the previous row as you crochet. The method has been demonstrated before. Refer to the chart to complete it. After completing it, move on to crochet pattern 6. The method is the same as pattern 4. The only difference is that the direction of the pattern is reversed. Just crochet using the previous method. After completing it, the next step is to crochet the third pattern 2. The method is identical to the previous pattern 2. Refer to the chart to complete it. Next, you'll reach the position for pattern 7. For the first 4 rows, directly follow the color scheme. Work single crochets using the corresponding color. You can also carry the yarn while crocheting, or use the Intarsia method to crochet. On the 5th row, when you encounter a rectangular square, crochet this stitch according to the colors on both sides. Which means on the 5th row, still use 2 colors to crochet separately. For the 6th row, you need to crochet a DC3 bobble. At the rectangular square position, I'll demonstrate the method for the 6th row. Here, I'll use this small sample to demonstrate. First, crochet up to the position before the first rectangular square, and pay attention to changing the color for the rectangular square. I have now reached the corresponding position. Insert the hook into the second row single crochet stitch. Crochet a DC3 bobble. While crocheting, wrap in the previous row's single crochet. Start by making 3 incomplete double crochets. After that, since the next stitch requires a color change, use the contrasting color here. Yarn over and draw through the loops on the hook. Complete the DC3 bobble. And complete the color change. Continue according to the chart. Work single crochets using the corresponding color. The tail of the bobble stitch can be hidden as you crochet, or you can leave a long tail and cut the yarn. When you reach the next position, join the yarn and continue crocheting. Move down and start crocheting from the adjacent single crochet position. When you reach the next square shape, work the DC3 bobble and change colors. For subsequent square positions, crochet using the same method. In other positions, work single crochets in the corresponding color. Continue crocheting down. Finish the last single crochet. This completes the method for row 6. Since the next row doesn't require the bobble stitch color, leave a long tail and cut the yarn here. For row 7, work single crochets using the corresponding color. When you encounter the bobble stitch position, pick up corresponding stitch and work as usual. Complete it by yourself. After completing it, work row 8. Work until you reach the corresponding square color block. At the corresponding position, pick up the stitch from the previous row. Crochet a HDC3 puff. First, work an incomplete half double crochet. Wrap the yarn. Insert the hook. Yarn over and pull through. This is the incomplete half double crochet. Then work 2 more incomplete half double crochets. While crocheting, you can press down on the loops on the hook. This ensures the loops are roughly the same height. 1, 2. The next stitch requires a color change. Use the corresponding color. Yarn over and draw through the loops on the hook. Complete the HDC3 puff. This also completes the color change. You can carry the yarn while crocheting, or you can cut the yarn and rejoin the new yarn later. For the rest of this row, the color blocks above the square shape are all crocheted with HDC3 puff and a color change. When you reach the next corresponding color block position, crochet the HDC3 puff. First, crochet 3 incomplete half double crochets. Then change colors. This completes the HDC3 puff and the color change. Continue crocheting in the same way. Finish the last stitch. That concludes the method for row 8. If you don't need this color anymore, leave a long yarn tail and cut the yarn. For row 9, simply work single crochets in the corresponding color. At the puff stitch position, pick up stitches as usual. For row 10, at the square shape position, correspondingly make single crochets. The color should match the adjacent color blocks. For row 10, you only need to use 2 colors for crocheting. For row 11, at the square shape position, you need to switch colors and work DC3 bobble. When crocheting, pick up from the second row below. Insert the hook into the corresponding single crochet position. Wrap in the corresponding single crochet. The method is identical to completing row 6. For the remaining rows, simply crochet the corresponding color single stitches. The method has been demonstrated before. Just refer to the chart for crocheting. At this point, the explanation for pattern 7 is complete. Finally, we will work pattern 8, which is the last pattern. Simply refer to the color scheme chart. Crochet the corresponding color single stitches. The method has been demonstrated before. You can complete it by yourself. After crocheting is finished, cut the yarn. Up to this point, the main body are all explained. Next, we will add the border. Crochet around the outer edge of the main body. We will use a few new stitches. Slip stitch, SC3-in-1, SC2-in-1, and DC4 bobble. Please watch my demonstration. Here, I will use this small sample for the demonstration. First, crochet the first round. Place the fabric vertically. The last row should be at the top. The side with the foundation chain should be at the bottom. Then find the position of the first stitch at the upper right corner edge. Insert the hook into this stitch. Join the yarn. Then make one chain as your beginning chain. Next, pick up this very stitch. Work at SC3-in-1, which means work 3 single crochets in one stitch. Complete the SC3-in-1. Pick up each stitch and work single crochets correspondingly. Continue working until the last stitch. At the last stitch position, work at SC3-in-1 here. Pick up and work along the side of each row. For this edge, work 1 single crochet per row. Start from the last row on this side. Pick up the edge and work into the spaces. Continue working down. While crocheting, if you encounter previous yarn tails, weave in them as you crochet. When you reach an edge with double crochets or turning chains, work 2 single crochets correspondingly. You can pick them up. You can also pick approximately corresponding positions. Continue working 1 single crochet per row for the single crochet rows. For double crochets or turning chains, work 2 single crochets per row. Continue crocheting. After completing the first row of this edge, move down to the starting point. Pick up the remaining half loop, which is the entry position for the stitch on this side. Work at SC3-in-1. Then pick up the remaining loop of the foundation chain. Correspondingly make single crochets. Continue crocheting until you have 1 stitch left. The starting yarn tail be hidden as you crochet. When you reach the corresponding position, work at SC3 in 1. Afterwards, pick up stitches on the edge. Work single crochets using the same method as the previous side. Continue working until you reach the last row of this side. When you complete the first round of the border, check if the fabric is flat. If it's not very flat, adjust the number of single crochets based on the actual situation. Finally, join a slip stitch. At the first single crochet, from SC3 in 1. The joining slip stitch doesn't count as 1 stitch, you need to pull it tight. For the next round, use the same color. Don't cut the yarn here. The method for the first round is now explained. Continue to work the second round. Start with chaining 1 as your beginning chain. Then pick up the adjacent stitch to the left. Work at SC3 in 1. Continue with 1 single crochet. Work single crochets correspondingly. When you encounter the position where you made SC3 in 1, work 1 single crochet first. The following position is the middle single crochet, work at SC3 in 1 in it. For the following positions where you made SC3 in 1, in the middle stitch, work at SC3 in 1. For both sides single crochet, work single crochets correspondingly. In the remaining single crochet positions, correspondingly make single crochets. Repeat this process until you finish the remaining part. Finally, pick up. Single crochet corresponding to the turning chain. Work 1 single crochet. Then, join with a slip stitch in the first single crochet position. Pull tight. For the next round, you need to change colors. Cut the yarn. This completes the explanation for round 2. For the following round 3, attach the yarn at the middle stitch, where you made SC3 in 1. Then, work according to the chart. This round will be work single crochet in the middle stitch. Where you made SC3 in 1, work single crochets in all the remaining stitches. You can complete this by yourself. After completing this, work round 4. Start with chaining 1 as the beginning chain. Insert the hook into the adjacent stitch. Work at SC2 in 1. That is, work 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. Complete the SC2 in 1. Then work the corresponding number of single crochets. When you reach the position for DC4 popcorn, which we'll refer to as the popcorn from now on, insert the hook into the single crochet stitch from the first round below. Work 4 double crochets. While crocheting, wrap the 2 rows of single crochets above. After completing, pull up the loop, remove the hook. Insert into the first stitch of these 4 stitches. Draw through the loop that was left. Note that the fabric should stand out forward. Chain 1 to secure. Complete the popcorn stitch. Continue working the corresponding number of single crochets. For the next popcorn, insert into the corresponding single crochet position from the first round. Crochet into it. Wrap the 2 rows of single crochets above. Once done, alternate crocheting the corresponding number of single crochets and popcorn stitches. Continue until you reach the corner. Before the middle stitch of the SC3 in 1. When you reach the corresponding position, work at SC2 in 1. For the rest corner position, always work SC2 in 1 in the middle stitch of the SC3 in 1. Between the corners, work the corresponding number of single crochets and popcorn stitches for each side. The starting number of single crochets is the same. Then crochet according to a certain pattern. Continue crocheting all the way down to where you started. Pick up the stitch below the turning chain and work a single crochet, then slip stitch into the first stitch of the SC2 in 1. For the next round, change colors. After completing, cut the yarn. You can complete it by yourself. Now, the method for the 4th round is explained. For the 5th round, work a DC3 in 1. At the corner, the position for the last leaf. Correspondingly make DC2 in 1s and double crochets. When working double crochets above the popcorn stitch, pick the braid directly above. For the joining slip stitch, work it into the third chain of the beginning chain. Pick up 2 thread. After completing the slip stitch, tighten. For the 6th round, pick up the spaces between the DC2 in 1s and leaves. Work the leaves DC2 in 1s and double crochets correspondingly. For the final round, pick up the stitches, correspondingly make single crochets. When you encounter the DC turning chain, insert where the previous slip stitch was made. Make a single crochet. The stitches and methods have been demonstrated before. Refer to the diagram. Complete the remaining rounds. After everything is done, cut the yarn. Weave in the final yarn tail to the wrong side of the fabric. Here, I'll demonstrate weaving in the yarn using a small sample. You can weave in a few more stitches. That concludes the border demonstration. Now let's make the decorations. There are 2 types, braids and tassels. For the braids decoration, work it at the corresponding position. For the tassels, make them separately, and attach them to the corresponding position. Let's start with the braids decoration. There's a method of crocheting in rounds. There's also a method of crocheting a single strip. The crochet method is the same for both. I'll first explain the method of crocheting in rounds. Crochet at the position of pattern 7. I'll use this small sample for demonstration. Find the position of pattern 7. Make sure the right side of the fabric is facing you. Then find the color change area. This is the 3 single crochets area. Insert the hook at the center single crochets entry position. Insert the hook. Pick up the corresponding thread. Make a slip knot. Draw the yarn through. Slightly tighten. Pay attention so that the knot doesn't come to the right side. Go down along entry positions between the rows. Work slip stitches correspondingly. Work until to second stitch of the widest part of this color. Here, the slip stitches doesn't need to be tightened, so work them a bit looser. Keep the fabric flat. When you reach the corresponding position, go down along the entry positions between the rows. Work to the middle stitch of the 3 single crochets like previous. After completing, mirror the stitches. On the left side, after crocheting is finished, make sure the piece is flat. Now we back to the starting position. Chain 1. Pull up the loop. Cut the yarn that will be moving. Secure with a chain stitch. Slightly tighten. Then crochet the yarn to the back. Tie a double knot with the ends. At this point, the crocheted braid in rounds is completed. Hide the starting and ending yarn tails inside the fabric. Next, pick up another color. On the inner side, follow the same method. Work a round of slip stitches. Finally, enlarge the loop. Leave a tail. Cut the yarn. Hook the yarn tail to the back. Tie a double knot to secure. Finally, hide the yarn tails inside the fabric. This completes the braids on the inner side. Continue using the same method. Work these 2 rounds of braids in the area with color 7. You can complete this by yourself. Then, I will demonstrate the method for crocheting braids in pattern 3. Start along the inner side of the pattern. Join the yarn from the bottom position of color 3. Work upwards along the inner side of color 2. Pick up entry points between the rows. Work slip stitches until you back to the starting position. Leave a yarn tail and fasten off. Then tie off the yarn tails on the wrong side. This is the method for crocheting braids in rounds. Next, let's explain the method for crocheting a horizontal braid. Here in pattern 3, you need to crochet this cross shape and a vertical braid texture. First, crochet the cross shape in the center of the pattern. When crocheting, it occupies a total of 8 rows of single crochets vertically. Horizontally, the braids occupy a total of 8 single crochets. Start by crocheting the vertical braid. Then crochet the horizontal braid. After crocheting is finished, tie off the yarn tail on the wrong side and hide them inside the fabric. When crocheting between the patterns, there is a vertical braid texture in the middle. It occupies a total of 9 rows vertically. Then, at intervals of 2 rows above and below, crochet a cross shape. The size is identical to the central cross. It occupies 8 stitches horizontally and 8 rows vertically. Similarly, start by crocheting the vertical braid, then crochet the horizontal braid. The crocheting method has been demonstrated before. You can complete them by yourself. The position and size of the shape here can also be adjusted according to preference. At the position of pattern 8 here, you also need to work a cross shape. Crochet it in the middle position of this pattern. It occupies 8 stitches horizontally and 6 rows vertically. Between the crosses here, there should be an interval of about 5 stitches. Similarly, the size and position can be adjusted according to preference. Just complete them by yourself at this point. The braids decoration part is finished. Finally, make the tassels. First, cut strands to the corresponding length and the corresponding amount. I have a smaller quantity here. Next, take 2 more yarns for secure. The colors should match the diagram. Pick up one of the securing yarn. And first lay out and align the previously prepared strands. Then, at the center position, insert one securing yarn. tie a double knot with the yarn tail. Leave the yarn tail. Then pick up the other securing yarn and insert it into the previous strands at a position about 2 centimeters from the top. Secure with the securing yarn by wrapping. When you start, leave a little yarn tail. Form a small loop. Place it in approximately the right position. Then wrap around. You can pull tighter while wrapping. Wrap around 3 to 4 times here. Then exit the thread from the previous small loop. And pull tight the small loop. Hook the yarn tail into the tassel. And finally, you can choose whether to trim the edges based on your preference. You can trim it flat, or you can place it unevenly like this. At this point, one tassel is made. Finally, attach it. Here, I'm demonstrating with a small swatch, using the yarn from the top knot. Pick the stitch that is relatively centered at the corner. And draw the yarn through. Then, at the knot position, insert the hook. Draw the yarn through. And hook one of the threads from the corner. Then tie the 2 yarn tails in a double knot to secure them. Hook the remaining yarn tail into the tassel. And smooth it out. One tassel is now attached. Follow the same method. Make and attach the tassels at the other 3 corner positions. At this point, the method for decorations are fully explained. Up to this point, the entire blanket making process is complete. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website, Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next episode.